Hello, I'm Maurice Bernard. This is my official YouTube channel. I'll be keeping you updated with the latest news, so please subscribe to my channel. What fascinates me most is that the writers are not presenting Curtis as completely evil. They are presenting him as emotionally cornered. That makes the situation far more compelling and honestly far more tragic. Curtis believes he is protecting his family, protecting Jordan, protecting his future, and defending himself against someone he sees as a threat. But every action he takes only pushes him deeper into trouble. It reminds me of some of the strongest psychological storylines this show's ever done over the years. Because the real danger is not Isaiah or even the investigation itself. The real danger is Curtis's inability to control the storm growing inside him. I think many viewers noticed immediately that Curtis became fixated on Isaiah far too quickly after the accident. There was almost no hesitation, no uncertainty, no real investigation. Curtis simply decided Isaiah must somehow be connected to what happened. To me, that says everything. A rational man asks questions first. A frightened man creates answers before the facts even exist. Curtis is behaving like someone desperate to direct blame away from himself and Jordan because deep down he knows they were responsible for that crash. And let us be honest here. Jordan and Curtis were distracted. That is a truth many characters inside the story keep trying to avoid. Jordan took her eyes off the road. Curtis encouraged the emotional moment between them. Their actions caused the accident. Yet, instead of accepting that painful reality, both of them immediately started emotionally searching for someone else to blame. That alone already makes the storyline more layered than some fans are admitting. What really caught my attention was how quickly Curtis transformed from concerned victim into aggressive accuser. That transition happened almost overnight, and I do not think it was accidental writing. I believe the writers want viewers to slowly realize that Curtis is unraveling emotionally. The scene where he physically attacked Isaiah was the clearest example yet. That was not simply anger. That was panic disguised as rage. Curtis is terrified that his life is slipping out of his control, and Isaiah has become the symbol of everything he fears. The irony is painful because Isaiah himself has not behaved like a villain. If anything, he has remained calmer and more restrained than most people would under the circumstances. The more composed Isaiah becomes, the more unstable Curtis appears. That contrast feels intentional to me. General Hospital has always been excellent at using emotional opposites to build tension between characters, and right now the contrast between Curtis and Isaiah could not be more obvious. I also cannot stop thinking about Valentine's involvement in all this. In soap operas, characters like Valentine are rarely inserted into a story without long-term purpose. His presence at the accident scene feels incredibly important to me. Curtis keeps minimizing details related to Valentine, and every time he avoids discussing exactly what happened, I become more convinced that the PCPD investigation is heading somewhere explosive. Lies in Port Charles never stay buried forever. They always grow larger before they collapse. What makes this storyline especially effective for longtime viewers like me is that it feels emotionally believable. Curtis is not acting rationally because guilt rarely allows people to behave rationally. Instead of processing the truth about the accident, he is creating emotional enemies. Isaiah became the easiest target because Curtis already carried insecurity and resentment toward him long before the crash occurred. The situation with Portia only intensified those feelings. I think the writers are quietly showing us that Curtis does not merely dislike Isaiah. He fears him. That fear is rooted in comparison. Isaiah is successful, intelligent, calm under pressure, and increasingly trusted by people around him. Meanwhile, Curtis is becoming more volatile with every episode. Even Portia seems to be noticing it now. I have watched enough soap operas over the years to recognize the moment when a marriage starts cracking beneath the surface, and Curtis and Portia are absolutely approaching that territory. Portia may still love Curtis, but trust is another matter entirely. Love can survive stress for a while. Trust usually cannot. Once a spouse begins wondering whether the person beside them is capable of dangerous emotional behavior, the relationship changes permanently. I believe that shift is already happening. Curtis probably thinks he is fighting for his family, but from my perspective, he is actually pushing his family further away every single day. The attack on Isaiah may end up becoming the turning point that destroys everything Curtis has left. If Isaiah suffered damage to his hand or arm, especially at a critical moment in his medical career, the consequences could become enormous. I honestly think the PCPD storyline is moving toward an arrest. Some fans believe the writers will protect Curtis from facing real consequences, but I am not so sure anymore. In fact, I think the writers are intentionally building toward the opposite outcome. What makes this particularly interesting is the possibility that the accident investigation and the assault investigation could eventually become connected. Once the PCPD starts pulling at loose threads, they may uncover contradictions in Curtis and Jordan's statements. They may begin questioning why Curtis became so obsessed with Isaiah in the first place. They may even start viewing Curtis not as a victim, but as someone trying to manipulate the narrative around the crash. That possibility completely changes the emotional structure of the storyline. Suddenly, Curtis is not a grieving or traumatized survivor. He becomes a man desperately trying to stay ahead of consequences that are closing in around him. That is a much darker and far more compelling direction for the character. I have also started wondering whether Jordan herself will eventually distance herself from Curtis emotionally. Right now, she still shares the guilt and trauma of the accident with him, but there are already signs of discomfort. Jordan is beginning to realize that Curtis is escalating the situation instead of helping it heal. His anger toward Isaiah keeps growing louder, more reckless, and more personal. At some point, Jordan may recognize that Curtis is no longer seeking justice. He is seeking emotional revenge. One detail I find especially fascinating is how the storyline keeps circling back to the theme of accountability. General Hospital often explores the idea that people can outrun the law temporarily but cannot outrun the emotional consequences of their actions. Curtis is living proof of that right now. Even before any arrest happens, he already looks emotionally exhausted. The guilt, paranoia, jealousy, and anger are consuming him from the inside out. And honestly, I think viewers over 60 probably connect with this type of story more than younger audiences sometimes do. When you have lived long enough, you understand how pride can destroy good people. You understand how one moment of emotional weakness can ripple outward and damage countless lives. Curtis is not collapsing because of one bad day. He is collapsing because he keeps doubling down on mistakes instead of facing them honestly. That is why I believe the writers are carefully positioning Curtis for a major downfall. Not necessarily because they hate the character, but because soap operas thrive on emotional consequences. A storyline only becomes unforgettable when characters are forced to confront the damage they cause themselves. Right now, Curtis is still blaming everyone else. But eventually, the walls always close in. I also believe there may be another shocking layer still hidden beneath the surface. General Hospital rarely builds this much emotional tension without planning a dramatic reveal. I cannot shake the feeling that there is still a secret waiting to explode. It could involve Valentine. It could involve evidence from the accident scene. It could involve Isaiah and Portia, or perhaps the writers are preparing a deeper betrayal connected to family, trust, or even paternity. The tension surrounding Curtis and Isaiah feels too emotionally charged to end with something as simple as a fistfight. And if the writers truly want to push Curtis into tragic territory, there is one possibility that could completely destroy him emotionally. What if everything he fears about Isaiah becomes connected to a personal truth he never expected? Soap operas love poetic punishment. Sometimes the greatest punishment is not prison or public humiliation. Sometimes it is discovering that your own anger blinded you to reality until it was too late. The more I watch these episodes, the more convinced I become that General Hospital is telling a story about self-destruction disguised as righteousness. Curtis thinks he is defending himself. In reality, he is slowly burning down his own life, piece by piece. His lies are becoming harder to maintain. His emotions are becoming impossible to hide. His violence is escalating. And the PCPD investigation feels like the ticking clock hanging over everything. I actually think the investigation will intensify much sooner than many viewers expect. Once officials begin questioning timelines and testimonies, Curtis could find himself trapped by his own inconsistent behavior. If Valentine reveals details Curtis wanted hidden, the situation could become catastrophic very quickly. And if Jordan finally admits publicly that the accident truly resulted from their distraction, Curtis may lose the last emotional shield protecting him. That would be devastating because Curtis clearly is not mentally prepared to face accountability yet. He still believes he can fight his way through this situation emotionally. But some problems cannot be punched away. Some truths refuse to stay buried no matter how desperately people try. I have watched General Hospital through countless eras, countless romances, countless betrayals, and countless tragedies. Some storylines fade quickly. Others stay with viewers because they reveal something painfully human. This one feels like the latter. Underneath all the drama, this is a story about ego, fear, insecurity, and the terrible damage caused when people refuse to admit their own mistakes. And that is why I believe the biggest explosion in this storyline has not even happened yet. The real emotional collapse is still coming. Curtis is standing in the center of a storm he helped create, and every episode makes it clearer that the consequences are getting closer. The PCPD is watching. Jordan is struggling emotionally. Isaiah is becoming an increasingly sympathetic figure. Valentine knows more than he is saying. Portia is beginning to see the cracks in her marriage. Every piece is slowly moving into position. As a longtime viewer, I cannot look away from this storyline because it has that rare feeling of genuine emotional danger. Not just soap opera danger, but psychological danger. Curtis is becoming consumed by his own anger and obsession, and unless something changes soon, I truly believe he may lose everything before he finally realizes the truth that has been there from the beginning. The accident did not destroy his life. His reaction to it did. Thank you for watching my video. I will regularly update you with the latest news about the drama General Hospital, so please stay tuned.